This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might call them Dad, but we won't ever, even if there's a fire. Every episode we discussed a film from the perspective of a film critic and from the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly will not be boring. I am your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critic, excuse me. You can hear me on other guests on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting, and I'm joined by my common man co-host, Jake Miller. Jake, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great.
And this is
glad to join you.
Oh, this is a deviation from the normal films we do. We have been doing some very serious, very intentional, like film movie stuff, and this is not that. This is something a little lighter, something a little more fun. We are talking today about the film Step Brothers. Give you the quick rundown of everything. Directed by Adam McKay, written by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, story by Will Ferrell, Adam McKay, and John C. Reilly. Starring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, Richard Jenkins, Mary Steenburgen, Adam Scott, Kathryn Hahn, co-starring Andrea Savage, Horatio Sands, Rob Riggle, cameo by Seth Rogen. Opened on July 25th, 2008. Box office $100.468 million domestic. So just a squeak under over $100 million. Fun fact, there are 27 films that have still made over $100 million, but made less than Step Brothers, and it made $100.468 million. So
wow,
it's just shows you how much money movies make these days. 100.46 domestic, 27.6 international, 128.1 million total on a $65 million budget, which I imagine is probably 90% just the cast.
Yeah,
probably just
definitely.
like paying salaries. But Rotten Tomatoes, 55% rotten by critics, unsurprising, frankly. A very apt 69% approved by audience members. Sadly, no Oscar nominations for Step Brothers. This is the first movie we've done without Oscar nominations. Did want to add a couple of movies nominations. It was given. It was a nominee for the AARP Movies for Grown-Ups for the best grown-up love story between Richard Jenkins and Mary Steenburgen.
That's good.
It's not exactly the happiest thing. Also, Richard Jenkins got his first Oscar nomination this year in 2008, and the San Diego Film Critics Society gave him a special award for his body of work for this movie, the movie he was Oscar nominated, and then a movie we talked about last week, Burn After Reading by the Coen brothers. So it doesn't make any sort of sense, but it is. It's a purely enjoyable, stupid movie that doesn't matter, and the plot doesn't matter. The idea is to get these two guys in a room and let them cook. What is this the epitome of, like, okay, this is stupid Will Ferrell doing what stupid Will Ferrell does best?
Yeah, making you laugh.
I mean,
it's a dumb, goofy, funny movie that does its job.
Absolutely.
It's a dumb, funny movie, and it makes you laugh. And I mean, it's easygoing. There's not a lot. There's not a lot to unpack or anything like that. It's just, I mean, this is something. End of the long week, you can get drunk and just you want to have some laughs and go to bed.
So
perfect.
So there's this falls into a category of some movies like this. Like, whenever I look at a movie like this, this reminds me of. I'm not sure if you've seen the movie Hot Rod with Andy Samberg, but if you,
I don't think so.
Well, it's preposterously stupid.
Mhm.
But the plot of this movie is he is a stuntman who wants to raise money to save the life of his stepfather, but he only wants to do this so he can fight him for his own self-worth. Like it's not actually like it's like, oh, I want to save him
Sounds
so I can
deep.
Exactly. So it's so stupid. Like it's stuff like that. Like you can't.
Is that a Steinbeck?
It was yeah, it's based on the
Is it from Mice and Men or something?
Yeah, it's the classic American story that we all know and love. Yeah, so Jake, I guess technically there's a plot to this movie. But do you want to go ahead and give us a little bit of a plot summary of what we're expecting from Step Brothers?
I'll try.
Go ahead.
Basically, there's Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly.
Correct.
These actors are they're 40 or approaching that, and so my age.
Yes.
And but that it's two cases of failure to launch.
Yes.
They just never left home. They both come from households where the other parent, either through divorce or death, they have been in a single parent household primarily. And they just never grew up. And so the parents, Mary Steenburgen plays Will Ferrell's mom, and then I'm sorry, remind me of the name.
Richard Jenkins.
Yeah, and so they end up getting married and create this mixed family, and basically Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly do a great job of portraying very conflicted children in a mixed household situation, like where you have to move in. Like I think that's the funniest aspect of it, is that they act like children,
absolutely.
But yeah, they're 40.
Yeah, and Will Ferrell's 6'2", and
right.
It's not like he's a small guy, and it just
Like I love whenever they first move in and they have their first dinner together, and then
yes.
They start talking shit, and then Will Ferrell's character gets upset, and they're like, "No, don't start crying." And he's like, he starts crying.
Oh yeah, it's
they basically just do a great job of portraying the turmoil that a child goes through when mixing families, basically.
Unfortunately, they're 30 years too late. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I think it's all summed up they end up, the parents break up because they have two adult children, basically, and but they end up kind of snapping back and getting everything back together, and everything ends up nice and happy. But something that sums up this movie so well is whenever Will Ferrell shows John C. Reilly his samurai sword.
Yes.
And then I think he says something at one point. He's like, "Can you imagine?" Oh no, it was the night vision goggles.
Yes,
That's what it was.
Yes.
And he goes, "Can you imagine if we had these when we were 12?" And he's like, "Even better, we have them when we're 40."
Exactly. It's just
That's
that's the summary of the movie. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, imagine what happens if two 12-year-olds were 40, and it's essentially it's 12 going on 40, but
Yeah.
in a comedy. This is not a type of film like. I know we'll get to a point where we'll talk about a film that you really like and I hated for a critical reason,
Or vice versa.
or vice versa. This is not going to be one of those movies because even as a like, okay, I'm a serious film critic. I'm going into this with like,
Right.
it's like I'm not going to be like, well, the lighting and this motif and this,
Right.
and,
How
the
can you?
metaphor? It's like, come on, like this is not what you go into this movie to do.
Yeah.
The most recent example I saw was The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. Like, it's a fun, nice little adventure movie, and you're watching it, and the entire time you're like, it doesn't matter how stupid the plot is. It doesn't matter how underdeveloped all these other characters are. It's about two movie stars doing movie star things, and that's what this
Right.
is. This is not. It's the plot doesn't matter. You're trying to get these two guys into a room and hope that magic happens. And
it does.
And it does. And it does.
Yeah.
So
it does its job. It does its job.
So I mentioned Rotten Tomatoes. It was 55% with critics. Rotten Tomatoes says a little blurb about why essentially critics didn't like it, or like kind of summarizing how people felt about it. It essentially
They
said,
hate fun.
well, the thing is, it said specifically, and I agree, it made sense whenever it said that. It said, like, if you like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, you're going to love this movie.
Oh yeah.
If you don't like them, you're going to hate this movie. And that's as simple as that. Like, if you go into the movie going like, I've never seen this before, let's see what I feel, that's not what you need to go into it with. You're going into it going like, this is going to be stupid, it's going to be funny, they're going to say ridiculous things the entire time. You don't really need to pay attention much to the actual mechanisms of the plot.
Right.
Just excuses to get them into situations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like I said, I think the movie does its job. I mean, it's I mean, what do you want it to do? I mean, I think it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. It's supposed to be,
it's not trying to be a critically acclaimed,
extremely not
dramatic, it is trying to be the movie that you put on when you're having a couple beers at the end of a long week and you just want to have a few laughs.
So
I don't want to think too much. I mean, and it does that job very well.
And I've seen this movie a lot of times, and I've have such nostalgia and enjoyment for it throughout the years. And I had rewatched it in preparation, but not that I needed to rewatch it, but my wife had never seen it. So we watch it, and we made the mistake of watching it sober. And it's frankly a bad movie to do that to. Like, you're going in going like, okay, I'm waiting for the organic laughs. It's like, those organic laughs aren't coming. They're coming based off of this is stupid. It's supposed to be stupid.
The ridiculousness of it.
The ridiculousness is supposed to be a part of it. So whenever that comes, like, yeah, exactly. I wanted to mention a couple tidbits, trivia tidbits I read about the movie.
Okay.
The first thing I said, the director Adam McKay actually wanted this to be a drama. He envisioned it as a drama, and I think Will Ferrell talked him out of it. It was going to be about two stepbrothers, like, maybe the emotional issues of all this kind of stuff. And then Will Ferrell's like, that sounds like a terrible idea. Like, it's so much dumber to be this way. Speaking of dramatic, Joaquin Phoenix, Oscar winner Joaquin Phoenix. He has said in interviews multiple times this is one of his favorite movies. He's probably seen it more than any other he's ever watched.
Wow.
Nice little tidbit there. Mary, speaking of Oscar winners, Mary Steenburgen plays the mother. She said Nancy. She said she broke a rib from this movie from the constant never-ending laughing.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
She said of all the people trying to get through this, like, it's hard to get through takes anyway whenever you're doing comedy. She said it's impossible for me. It's like, because she doesn't really do that doesn't do comedy that much. And then now that she has started to do comedy, this was a good breaking in because she was just in a constant state of trying to, like, and I noticed this actually yesterday a couple days ago when I watched it. So in the scene where Will Ferrell's in the back of the car, like there'll be some scenes where she's on one side and Ferrell's in the back, and then every once in a while it'll just be her face. It's like, okay, that means Will Ferrell couldn't be in that scene because she could not make it through a scene without laughing. So
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. All right, this is my favorite little piece of trivia. So $65 million budget. We said it's probably the majority of it probably goes to Reilly and
Yeah.
Ferrell and McKay. $20,000 was the cost of how much it made to make fake testicles to put on the the drum set. And Will Ferrell's fake testicles cost $20,000.
I could have done it for way
I
less.
think the same thing. Like
I'll show my testicles on a drum set. I don't care.
Well, the one is like, well, why don't you just do it for real? Like,
Right.
have somebody stunt do it and save the 20 grand. And second, you can't tell me you can't go to a Spencer's and jimmy those up a little bit to make those a little better.
Well, we live in Texas. You can't tell me you don't see cow balls hanging off the end
truck
of
nuts
it.
on every other truck. I mean, what you can't.
Come on, just get some truck nuts.
I mean, you could make them like some random. I guarantee there's a very realistic pair of testicles somewhere that you could probably ship in from Texas or something that
Yeah.
will be significantly less than $20,000. But
Yeah, you can get some calf balls or something.
exactly. It's ridiculous that it actually got
20 grand.
20 grand. I mean, where does the money go? I hope whoever made that still has it like in a drawer somewhere. Like, yeah, I highly recommend if you're going to watch this movie. If you haven't watched this movie, what are you doing? Because I mean,
Right.
It's been what 14 years since this movie came out. If you haven't seen Step Brothers by now, I mean, it's on TV all the time. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think it's free on TBS, stuff like that. So please, by all means. So I would like to do a little thing with you here, Jake. I'm going to say a quote from the movie, and I'm going to
Okay.
say it in a very straightforward, linear way. And I would like you to recreate it as how that quote comes across in the film. Okay?
So you're gonna like say it just deadpan.
Yeah. So
And then-
for example, is I would go, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
But in this case,
Gotcha.
it'll be Step Brothers quotes. It's like, the problem is I'm going to see if I can get through these. If I can get- Okay, so we're going to start with this one. This is actually a combination of Brennan and Dale going back and forth, but I think you can do all three in a row. This house is a fucking prison on planet bullshit in the galaxy of This Sucks Camel Dicks. Jake, please.
This house is a prison.
On
Why?
planet bullshit
I'm playing bullshit
in the galaxy of This Sucks Camel
in the galaxy of This Sucks Camel Dicks.
See, the delivery is all half the things in this movie is all based off of the deliveries and how it comes through. Like, if you're like, and I was whenever I thought of this idea, I was like, hey, we could just have Jake do the quotes, and I was like, well, half of them are whispered when they're in bed, like.
Those are my favorite.
You and your mom are hillbillies. This is a house of learned doctors. Like,
Yeah.
like
Curly-headed fuck.
okay, so this is a good time to bring that up. So whenever like there are dozens and dozens of quotes in this movie that you could bring up at a random part. Like what are the ones that you immediately like? I mean, there are a lot of kind of that have gotten into the cultural, like "Stay Golden, Pony Boy." I've heard a lot, like,
As far as ones that have
really stuck with you.
Well, there's some in common usage with me.
Sure.
That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
The outtakes.
So yeah, I see someone like hot dogging down the road or something, or with
like that.
loud mufflers or something. That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
Okay. So
Let's see.
I want to bring up
Go
mine
ahead.
real quick. So it's kind of a dragged on part. It's like it's Dale. It's my favorite line that Dale says in the entire movie. Suppose Nancy comes see me out of the shower and decides to come on to me. I'm looking good. I got a luscious V of hair going through my chest pubes down to my ball fro. She comes, takes one look at me and goes, "Oh my God, I've had the old bull. Now I want the young calf." And she grabs me by the wiener.
Yeah. And then his dad's like, "Shut the fuck up!"
So this is one of my favorite random things about this film is the fact that it's like, okay, John C. Reilly has an Oscar nomination, and Mary Steenburgen has an Oscar. She won, and Richard Jenkins has 2 Oscar nominations. Like, these are legitimate actors, and Richard Jenkins goes on a long monologue about wanting to be a dinosaur when he was 17. Like, it's so stupid, and it's
brilliant.
Like, who would have think? It's like, I just like the idea of having really esteemed, accomplished actors doing these ridiculous things, and I respect them more for that. Absolutely,
you know, that
having
they're able to,
yeah,
have fun with themselves. They're not like, oh, I'm above that or anything.
Yeah.
Have a good time, and make a comedy.
So I was going through it, and I was like, okay, so of everybody who's on, like, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's kind of the appeal of the draw for the movie, but for everybody else left in the like between the other actors, when I think of this movie, I think of Catherine Hahn, who plays Will Ferrell's sister-in-law, Adam Scott's wife, who is in love with Dale, John C. Reilly's character. And one of the lines that always makes me laugh, but I can never, for some reason, I can't really figure out a way to fit it into casual conversation. I want to roll you up in a ball and shove you in my vagina. That's, I mean,
and anytime I feel a tickle, I just know it's that curly hair
walking around inside me. It's cozy. Yeah, I mean, it's just so stupid. But man, she goes to such a level of commitment. Like, I mean, Adam Scott is essentially playing a huge dick, which I get. Which it's pretty straightforward, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna be like a Stepford wife, but behind the scenes, I'm gonna be a sex fiend who's inexplicably in love with John C. Reilly. So I mean,
basically, she falls in love with him after she finds out that he punched him.
Yeah, of all the things for it to happen, it's like
you punched my husband. I want to do you.
that was the only thing. It wasn't anything else. It's like, I heard you struck him in the face.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not. So who else do you have here? The other people are Richard Jenkins with his dinosaur monologues. Nice. Mary Steenburgen with a great line. What the fucking fuck? That's a good one. Adam Scott and his just loathsome yuppiness. Honey, hurry it up, Dane Cook, pay-per-view, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Seth Rogen having a memorable little cameo as somebody who's trying to hire the guys. Horatio Sands as the Billy Joel.
Yes.
The Billy Joel. No, only 80s Billy Joel, sir. Like.
Yeah. And I would have gotten mad at the guy that was hollering and everything, because I like 80s Billy Joel.
Absolutely.
I like the doo-wop.
I agree. The doo-wop, Billy Joel, all that kind of stuff. Like, play piano.
Got his greatest hits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of that growing up as far as getting exposed to all that kind of stuff. Also, Rob Riggle as
I love Rob Riggle.
As the most unhinged helicopter salesman in the history of helicopter sales.
Yeah.
I
love Rob Riggle. He
Rob
was
Riggle's
and he was an officer in the U.S. Marine Corps.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Afghanistan veteran, I believe. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for him. But he's just flat out fucking hilarious.
And he's such a force. Like he's almost like Will Ferrell's a big dude, but Rob Riggle's real big. Like
Right.
like it seems like he's an.
It's one of the guys. Yeah, you walk into a room and you're like, I don't want to fight that guy.
Seems scary. Yeah. And and not to mention, especially in this film, going "Pah!" Like it's such a
pow. Pow.
What is it? What are you saying?
Are you saying pow?
Are you saying pow? Pah! Like it's just a sound. Like
He will eat your dick like Kobayashi.
It's a really good. There's a couple outtakes from this movie. There's an 11-minute outtake thing on YouTube, which I highly recommend. And Rob Riggle at one point is trying to intimidate Will Ferrell, and he's trying to keep a straight face. And he's like, "I'm going to take this and throw it in your temple." And the entire time he's laughing, and Will Ferrell goes, "I don't want that."
Well, I love it at the Catalina wine mixer whenever he's like, God, he's complimenting him. He's like, you did a great job. He's like, God, your face though. I just really wanna.
He just couldn't get over the fact that he's like, man.
He's like, is there anything I can do to work on that? Or no, not really. It's just your face. It's like, all right, all I can do is take that in and.
Okay. I have a couple more lines for you to do. Okay, Jake. This wedding is horseshit.
This wedding is horseshit.
It's all about the volume. I mean, it's the way they do it's just.
Can you just imagine like being at your dad's wedding or your mom's wedding or something?
See, this is the funny thing about it is
you're 40.
I think about these things in the context.
I didn't watch the salmon. I said it 4 times.
I think about these in actual context of actually any sort of reality, and it's terrifying. Like,
yeah,
you don't
everyone would be like, that guy's nuts.
It's like, oh God, we got to send him some shit. And you know, when they say, you have to go to therapy, it's non-negotiable, and they're like, come on, and you think about it, you're like, seems pretty reasonable. Like,
probably.
Yeah, I mean, so, okay, so,
but I'm with Will Ferrell. I don't like salmon.
You're really on the side. It's like, I told you 4 times. It's not hard. It shouldn't.
I don't like smoked salmon.
So
I would throw a fit too.
A couple things about this is one is like I like. There's a couple things about this movie that I really like. I like the idea of, so at that family dinner, they're eating dinosaur chicken nuggets. So,
yes.
I mean, really reinforcing and getting way too much ketchup.
Yes.
They have what they have.
That blue Powerade or something.
They drink blue Powerade the entire movie. Like,
yeah.
That's the only thing they have.
Yeah.
I mean, the stupid stuff like that, or night vision goggles, and the idea of being 40 and having night vision goggles does sound pretty cool. I mean, it's like, why would you want those when you're 12? Because when you're 40, you can actually think of things you can actually do with them.
Have you ever tried them?
Actual night vision goggles? I unfortunately
they're pretty cool.
I have no doubt. There's a couple, like, they always talk about this when they talk about Blazing Saddles, and before we started taping, you kind of brought the same thing up. There's a couple jokes in here that I'm not sure would really fly these days. At one point, Adam Scott's trying to sell the house, and Will Ferrell is acting as a Nazi, and John C. Reilly's acting as a KKK member. I think Will Ferrell's line is like, I got plenty of fertilizer. Like, it's like, okay,
I've got tons of it.
I mean, so I think he had a very specific number, like 8 tons. I was like, oh no, no, like it's something, and yeah, I mean,
and then John C. Reilly's in just the full KKK deal, and he's like, "You'll love the neighborhood. Everyone recycles."
I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm like, I'm not sure we could do that anymore.
It's
funny.
Yeah, it was funny, but it's very much a like kind of a time and place. And you
Simpler time, perhaps.
Yeah, you can look at it in nostalgia. You don't necessarily have to be like, oh, it's funny because
Right.
it's applicable now. No, it's because
Right.
it's always been one of those things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get to my weekly poll for a dumbass for you, Jake. And I'm excited for this one because I think you have a chance to go have a perfect score on this one. We're going to do, on this week's poll for a dumbass, we're going to again do the director of this film, Mr. Adam McKay. He has not exactly directed a lot of stuff. He is a credited director of 8 films, but I'm highly confident that you will be able to knock a lot of these out. Number 1, his directorial debut, 2004. I know for a fact you've seen this because we watched together in the theaters. Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Hell yeah.
I mean, it was neck and neck between Step Brothers and Anchorman for us to watch this movie. So,
Yeah.
That's unsurprising. Just as unsurprising, 2006 Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Yes. And then Step Brothers in 2008. 2 years later, 2010, another Will Ferrell collaboration, The Other Guys.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I love that one.
Exactly. It's Stupid Cops. I mean, what can be better?
Yeah.
This might be where we lose you. Have you seen Anchorman 2?
Yeah, I did, and I was disappointed.
You were disappointed. I
never
saw
like it very much.
Is it just try too much of the same thing? Because I haven't seen it.
It just didn't live up to the original.
Too much
effort.
Yeah.
It just didn't get there.
Trying too hard. That makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
So you have seen it though. So, okay. So
I have seen it.
Okay. So
I've seen a movie you haven't.
It happens very rarely. I get it.
It's rare.
Okay. So then we make a definitive turn in 2015. He gets more serious and gets critical acclaim for it. 2015's The Big Short. It's about people predicting the Great Recession in 2008. Christian Bale, Steve Carell. It's a very complex movie. A lot of people are very down on it. I really enjoy it. It's very financial savvy.
Big Short.
The Big Short.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not very. I'm not surprised you haven't seen that just because kind of the way it is. I'm probably higher on The Big Short than a lot of critics. A lot of people are like, oh, it's kind of dumbing down very complex things, but I really like it. 2018's Vice, the biopic about Dick Cheney.
Oh.
With Christian Bale playing the titular vice president.
Yes. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the previews and I want to see it.
It's you know how you said Anchorman 2 tries too hard?
Yeah.
Vice is the same way when it tries to make a point. It should come organically.
Is it?
And it's over like, okay, here's this guy.
Is that a bit too political, or it's a bit too slanted or something?
Not even that.
Or...
It's just kind of like, okay, what are we trying to say here? And like, oh, he's a turd for this reason. It's like, okay, well, we've established this. Where are we going with this? It's kind of just, okay, we don't like this guy, and that's all we kind of have to say about it. Like, there's nothing real deeper than this guy kind of sucks. Like, okay, like that's about it. Like,
okay,
it's interesting, worth watching. And last year is the last film he directed, a film I'm almost positive you've seen, and a personal favorite of your wife's, Don't Look Up.
Is that the one where it rains poop or something?
No, this is Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence with the asteroid coming to destroy Earth. You haven't seen it. Your wife has seen it, and she despises it. She hates it so much. Another situation where, so Adam McKay has a tendency to be a little politically more inclined than you would expect. He has a George W. Bush quote at the beginning of this movie. It doesn't make any sense.
Whenever we watched it, Alex goes, Is that an actual quote from him? It's like, I think so.
And of all the fun kind
And
of
in Talladega Nights, he does a goofy fake quote from Eleanor Roosevelt.
and I you've seen the other guys as
Mhm.
all the fun shenanigans. It's actually about like pension stealing and financial ruin and all that kind of stuff. So it's not
Yeah,
really
that's
surprising.
actually. Yeah, that's really actually about the Bernie Madoff scandal.
Yeah, that's not.
basically.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of see the writing on the wall from where he's been going, and he's been kind of leading that direction. I very much did not like Do Not Look Up. I wish he would be. I wish he would stick to the dumb stuff. I think he's really good at the dumb
Yeah.
stuff, and like even in like the other guys, I think he's really good at action, and some of the stuff he does in Anchorman action wise is pretty solid. Also like I think of so the big problem with Adam McKay these days is him and Will Ferrell have broken up. So him and Will Ferrell were kind of team, like they had a production company together and were working on these kind of things. And Adam McKay wanted to create a television series about the creation of the Lakers dynasty in the 70s, 70s and 80s when Magic Johnson showed up. And Will Ferrell, who was a huge Lakers fan, wanted to play Dr. Jerry Buss, the creator of the Lakers dynasty. And McKay didn't think he fit the role. And so he gave it to John C. Reilly, who Will Ferrell took it kind of personally, and there was like some slighted feelings, and so I guess they just I don't know if that's never going to happen again, but for the time being, it seems like it might just be like we have Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, and the other guys to look at, and might be that lightning in the bottle we never get again.
Damn, that's disappointing.
It's a shame. I mean,
they work so well together.
They do.
And like even Mary Steenburgen version works well with Will Ferrell in Elf.
Yes.
And so you kind of see these repeat performances where they work well together and they perform very well together. So I hate to hear that.
So I want to talk about Will Ferrell for a little bit because, when you think about this movie, you kind of think of like, this is on this watch. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was sober, as I said, not the way you're supposed to watch Step Brothers. Maybe I watched it because I was watching it that way. I was like, man, this is really a Will Ferrell dominated movie over John C. Reilly. Like I thought John C. Reilly was much more second fiddle to Will Ferrell, which I'm sure it's hard to keep up on that level with what Will Ferrell has. But whenever you think of him, like probably Anchorman, probably this, and probably Elf, are those the three big ones you think of, or is there like anything else that immediately pops out at you? I mean, obviously all the stuff he did on Saturday Night Live throughout the years, but I mean, a lot of this, it's those are the big ones, right?
Yeah, as far as the movies go, those are the big ones. I mean, he was huge on SNL, and that obviously probably launched him, and man, he's been great in a bunch of stuff. What was the movie where he was a soccer Old School?
Old School is great. Kicking and Screaming
And
is the
then
one you're thinking of.
Kicking and Screaming, he's hilarious in.
Zoolander.
Yeah.
I mean, his cameo in Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
I mean, those kind of things. He's fit into such a nice little niche of what he does. It's really. Did you see Eurovision a couple of years ago?
Mm-mm.
He plays a Scandinavian who tries to be a songwriter with Rachel McAdams. That's not bad.
I love Rachel McAdams.
Oh, I know you do. That's worth seeking out. What's
it called?
Eurovision. It's on Netflix.
Eurovision.
Yes, it's on Netflix. Oscar nominee, by the way. Have you watched anything with Will Ferrell that you like dramatic in any sort of way where you've been like, okay, I see what's going on here? Anything that pops out immediately?
No, not anything that pops out immediately.
The only thing I have ever really been like, okay, I like what he's doing here was Stranger Than Fiction. I'm not sure if you ever seen it. It's kind of a strange movie. He plays a literary character who comes to life and hears the narrator as she dictates essentially what he does day to day. It's not bad. It's you kind of got to get on the same wavelength as the film, but he's kind of settled into a spot where he is just like, okay, well, he probably has a lot of money and he probably doesn't have to do a whole lot these days.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah.
So, Jake, I think it's that time. I mean, is it time for me to get somewhere?
Are you going in the hot box?
I think I'm going to the hot box.
I think you're going in the goddamn hot box.
Let's go. Let's do this.
You're in the hot box.
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. So, for those in our audience that don't know, me, Ben, and our younger brother shared a room till I was 16.
Yeah, I was 14.
So,
yes. So, the majority of our lives, especially our childhood, we were in the same room together.
And for the majority of that, Ben and I were in bunk beds.
Generally correct, yes. And generally, I was in the bottom, and you were.
Ben was on the bottom. I was on the top, and then our other brother was on a separate bed. But something that I love about this movie is the scenes where they're laying in bed at night and basically just talking shit to each other.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you, we had many, many memories. What is the funniest memory you have of us, like when we're all in bed and, you know, we're supposed to be going to sleep, mom, dad going to bed, and the hijinks that three boys can create in a small bedroom?
Man. You know what's funny? The lasting memory is not necessarily the hijinks. It's the fact that I couldn't go to sleep. Whenever I think of just for the sake of context, Jake and my younger brother both had asthma. And so in order to get to sleep, they would have to take a nebulizer treatment. So they would put this mask on and it'd link on and it would make this nice little pleasant buzzing sound and smoke would come out and they'd breathe it in but they'd put it on, they'd pass out and it would put them right out. And I'm guessing it would take about 20, 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what kind of treatment they needed. So I'm laying there and this thing's about that loud and it kind of changes pitches.
It's about like a small air compressor back in the early 90s.
Yeah. So that would go on and it finally shut off. One of my parents would come in and shut it off. I'm like, all right, they're asleep. Sweet. I'd go to sleep. Then it's the other brother's turn.
The other one.
And then they'd go in 30 minutes. Oh, then I can finally get to sleep. So I'd probably go to sleep about an hour later than everybody else just because it's like, well, I can't go to sleep yet because these idiots have to breathe. So that's what I was, I mean, so specifically whenever I think of the hijinks of the stuff we do, I think of the kind of gross shenanigans that young boys would do. Would be like, hey, let's try to stick our butts directly in the air with our heads closest to the ground and suck in air in our butts so we could make as loud as farts as we can. And we got so good at it after a while, we could like almost chorus it out. Like, and I mean, I don't remember our parents ever coming in being like, what are you guys doing? It's they walked in and they're like, we know exactly what you're doing. So, that was probably the lasting memory of us just trying to do air farts.
Just farting. And
I mean, I don't. God bless having a. I realized at one point, you know, our parents had a 8, 10, and 12-year-old in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even like you said, we were 16. There's a 12, a 14, and 16-year-old in the same room. I'm like, I cannot imagine the filth and the
I don't
smells.
want that.
I don't want that either. Exactly. Luckily, we have girls. We each have at least a girl to offset
to balance it out.
The boys. So
we're hey, fellas, we can't.
So yeah, air farts is the thing I always think about.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question. Do you remember causing an earthquake?
Okay, so yeah, I do remember earthquakes because being on the bottom bunk, you kind of memorized what you have nothing to stare at except the bottom of the bed on top of you. So whenever you're looking at it, you essentially know it's like, okay, there's probably 3 slats that matter. There's like the one in the middle, the one on the top, the one on the bottom for the purposes of the foundation. And then you can kind of move other slats around. And if you adjust them in a certain way, you can kind of kick whoever's up there and feel them in a certain way. So I would occasionally like hike my legs up and earthquake you every once in a while. Specifically, I'm not sure if you ever remember the thought there was an actual earthquake.
Yeah. So yeah, Ben used to jack with me occasionally on the bottom bunk. And then sometimes if he moved around a lot at night, then,
which I do.
Yeah, I would feel it, and then I'd scream at him, "Ben, quit moving! Stop it!" Whatever. One night I woke up and everything is shaking, and I said, "Ben, stop it! Quit! Ben, quit!" It settles down. I go back to sleep. Wake up the next morning to news that there was an earthquake last night. I was like, "Oh, that wasn't Ben."
I think it was, obviously,
but
nothing.
I call it Earthquake Ben.
Earthquake Ben. That's right. I have fond memories of I think the majority of my leg strength as a child was trying to figure out how to lift you off, and not exactly like you were a fat kid. You were always super skinny, and it was easy to jump you off. But still,
yeah, you would
with relative ease, you'd really fly up there. So.
Yeah, you would just pop the mattress off.
Yeah,
because I just had a mattress sitting on.
I was thinking the same.
Several slats.
Looking back,
there wasn't a.
Looking back,
that wasn't safe.
How did we not have a box spring? It's like, man, the 90s were wild.
And I'll add this. Our entire bedding situation was our fathers and our uncles.
Absolutely, yeah. We
in the 50s
and
60s.
And it wasn't like
70s.
Oh, here's the bunk bed. We'll get a new bed for your brother. No. He had the little brother. Our little brother had our youngest uncle's bed, and we had the bunk bed shared by my dad and our older uncle. So I mean, and I'm sure they held up just fine. We never broke them. Considering how much the rambunctiousness we were, I'm shocked we never did anything of any sort of caused any trouble.
We didn't destroy them too bad, but
I mean. The jankiness of the 90s.
You're pretty lucky that we never had that scene where the top bunk just crushes the bottom one, and you get like a scratch on your forearm.
Is that all right?
It's so bad.
And he smacks it. That was the best part. And he's like, "You're fine. Yeah.
You're fine."
All right, what else you got for me?
All right. So this movie. Something that I love about it is that it invokes childhood memories of just being brothers.
Absolutely.
And being little jackasses. And so, do you remember Roof Ball?
I believe I do remember Roof Ball.
On the side of the house on Midland?
Yes. Yes. So essentially we would play... even though we had each other to play with, we would use kind of our roof as the go-between to throw the ball to each other. and essentially fight between who could come down with it. And yes, I mean, a lot of stuff like whenever I think of the ramp, I remember a situation where our parents had gone out for the night or whatever, and we had been home alone, and they're like, "Hey, we're home alone. What do you want to do?" And at the time, I think I was I had hit puberty a little earlier, and I was bigger.
Oh,
and so
Lord,
and
yes,
and
I know what you're talking about.
I said, "Hey, let's wrestle," and I picked you up and dropped you, and you just landed on your tailbone and just
body slammed.
And I went, "Oh, I guess we're not wrestling because Jake's hurt now."
For those of you that don't know, I am the oldest brother, but yeah, during the puberty times,
you were always smallest.
Yeah, yes. I was not biggest, and Ben
I was 6 foot tall when I was 13. So
Ben got much larger than me, and yeah, we would roughhouse and stuff like that. And yeah, there was one point where he just body slammed me, and I went,
you know what's funny?
Being the oldest doesn't matter.
I remember doing it with a smile on my face, going,
"Oh,
wrestle."
I'm sure you did."
And I was thinking, "Yeah,
hey,
we're gonna wrestle," and that just didn't happen.
I'll admit it. I gave you hell for several years, and then once you got big enough, I went, "Whoop!
I guess that's not happening.
That's
anymore.
over."
I do agree with you. The general rambunctiousness is like, do you want to do karate in the garage? That general idea of wanting to do karate in the garage is like, boy, that sounds fun. And you know,
that's absolutely a boy thing.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah. I
mean, we did so much stupid shit.
So much. I mean, we had a water reservoir right next to our house that we were specifically never allowed to play with if it rained in any sort of way, because our parents were perfectly aware of how dangerous it potentially could be in any sort of water situation.
Yeah.
But in any other situation, if it was in any way dry, we'd be on that thing constantly. Like,
we used to ride our bikes up and down it. And
so, I mean, all that stupid stuff you did, it does very much have a nostalgic factor of being like, man, just fun being a dumb, stupid kid.
Yeah. All right. I've got hey, you're still in the hot box, but
as you can tell by my warm glow, I can feel it.
Mm-hmm. Favorite childhood snack. So you mentioned them eating like dino nuggets.
Yes.
Okay. So fight and drinking like blue Powerade.
Yes.
So what was your go-to snack whenever you were a rambunctious kid?
Okay, so it's funny, whenever I think of snacks, I always think of going to friends' houses, just because, I mean, I'm sure we had we always had candy and general stuff like that, but it wasn't something like, oh, there's always this kind of candy or this kind of stuff. I always think of like, my go-to was always fruit by the foot, just because what I specifically remember, especially when we were younger kids, is we had a sliding glass back door. And with fruit by the foot, I could put it on the window, roll it all the way down.
So disgusting.
So disgusting. Same thing.
There's like dead fly guts on it.
Exactly. And the what's the other one with it was like fruit by the foot, but it had like cutouts. Yeah, so whatever that was, that was also good for the window. Like you could cut the little, like, I pull the dinosaur out there and put it on there, and they eat the rest. And yeah, I'm shocked we made it through childhood with all the stuff that we absolutely.
Well, I know, but I mean, you have kids, I have kids.
Yeah, they're disgusting.
And now they do stuff, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's not even. What are you doing? But then you think back to your childhood, and
you're like, wow, I just really gross
I used
stuff.
To disgusting.
Yeah, but fruit by the there's the two I always think of is fruit by the foot, and then additionally, it was the kind of the side of fruit by the foot. There were always these fruit roll-ups was what I was thinking of. There was a version.
And they had cutouts in them. Yeah.
There was a version of a fruit roll-up that was always next to the fruit in the grocery store that we would never get, but every once in a while we'd get them, and they'd be a really special treat. I always remember those, but probably fruit by the foot is or fruit roll-ups are the specific ones I always remember.
So something I remember specifically for you, a snack you would eat when we were little kids was ranch and bacon bit sandwiches.
They're still great. I just don't. I'm an adult now, and I can't. I'm in my late 30s, and I still can't.
And I think you would do like even a tortilla roll up version of it.
No, I'll give you one better. I would do a Big Mac version of it. Is what I would do. I would I would so it's it sounds like we're dirt poor, and this was not the case. It was just us being like, we're dumb kids who want to eat stupid things, and
yeah, and I think we grew up with parents that grew up poor.
Yes.
So they were kind of like, I don't know, make a cheese sandwich.
Yeah. Do you know how many honey sandwiches we ate when we were kids? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So many honey
and they were good.
They were great. So you get a piece of Mrs. Braird's, and when I was a kid, you're like, okay, you got to put the ranch on, and then you put the bacon bits on, and then you put the bread on. But then as I got an adult, I learned, I grew up. You put the bacon bits on first, then you put the ranch on. And if you're feeling a little squirrely, you put some fajita seasoning on there.
Hot damn.
Oh man. And then if you're feeling really
Are you on meth? Wild man.
This is it's the food of somebody who loves Wonder Bread and ranch dressing and doesn't eat anything else. But I mean, I can't say I've had one in the last decade, just because it's like, well, if I eat that now, I'm gonna, it's like, oh, my knee will start hurting. And
yeah. Dude, I think that's the only thing that got you through your childhood.
I was a really picky eater, so yeah.
And you ate a lot of those.
A lot of like individual cans of peaches and just random things, anything to get me fed, because I was such a picky eater. I agree. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
All right, let's see. All right, a scene I particularly like is, it's right before they say they're going to get a divorce, the parents, and he goes to the Cheesecake Factory on Christmas Eve, and they come in, guys, and they like have kind of a presentation on why they should open one present on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And then he was like, I'm going to the Cheesecake Factory.
Get a drink.
She was like,
by the way, he had a scotch in his hand.
And a cookie.
And a cookie. Goes down to go to the Cheesecake Factory. Yeah. Yeah.
She was like, but it's Christmas Eve. And he goes, oh, Merry Christmas. And just walks out. And
yeah.
But do you remember these types of discussions where we would come into our parents and try to argue like, this is why we should open a present on Christmas Eve, or this is why this or that, or
okay, Mom, the other day
this is why we should be able to, we'll have so much room for activities if we have a bunk bed.
Okay, Mom, this was so. We were talking about it, and I know you said something about it the other day. We should do this because of this specific reason. It's so like, it's hilarious. It's so tapped into the dumbed down version of a child's brain. Like, it's like, hey, listen, my logic is sound, and this is the reason it needs to happen. Absolutely, we did that all the time. It was a constant state of, okay, Mom, we're pulling up the carpet. There's no reason we can't rollerblade in the house. And that was it.
Right.
So, exactly. So, and we went, and occasionally we got that. We got to rollerblade in a carpetless house. But, every once in a while it's like, no, you can't do that. It's like, well, come on. Like, this
this house is a prison.
It's a fucking prison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, there were a lot of that. That's the funny, that's the best thing about this movie. It's really just two 12-year-olds. They just happen to be 40 years old.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you remember how many times did you hear this? sharing a room with two brothers. Hey, you awake?
which is literally the world's dumbest question.
Yeah.
It's
It's like, hey, yeah, you awake?
yes. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
You said yeah, so yeah, I'm awake. Yeah, there's a lot of that just for it's like, and it was usually for absolutely nothing. Hey, yeah, you awake? Yeah. What's up? Uh, I don't remember. there's a lot of that.
It's like, hey, have you seen that show? That Do you want to watch that show tomorrow? I think it comes on tomorrow. Something like, shut up! I'm trying to go to sleep.
It's so funny. Like as a kid, you never put any thought into having sleep, and then nowadays you're like all the things.
Leave me the fuck alone.
Exactly. As an adult, you're like, you know how hard it is for me to get 8 hours. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm lucky if I get 8. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What else you got for me?
I'll let you out of the hot box. I don't have much on that one.
Okay, that's all right. That's all right. You know, this has been more of a nostalgia episode than anything else.
Yes, I think so.
This is it's the perfect film to watch with a brother.
Yes.
And just because you're like, hey, remember all this stupid stuff, and you can just go on a tangent and be like, remember we did this and this. And
yeah.
my parents were this. You know. They both sleepwalk and put pillows in ovens and purses and freezers. I mean, it's childish humor because they're essentially children, and you remember being children. They really tap into that children aspect of it.
Yes, they definitely did. By the way, speaking of sleepwalking, which one of you peed in the toy box?
So it was our other brother.
That was the other one?
Yeah. So he's now, was it you who sleptwalked and did a front flip off a hotel bedroom?
No, that was the other brother.
That was the other brother too. So he
flipped over me.
Okay, so our other brother was more of the sleepwalker than I don't think I've ever sleptwalked. I don't think that I know of. If I have, nobody told me. How about that? So
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, our younger brother sleepwalked
much more inclined to.
And mostly it involved urine.
Hey, whatever gets the job done. I get it. All right, I think that just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic, The Common Man. It's been a different one, but you know what? It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at NebHasBeen, on the Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website at icecreamforfreaks.com. You can follow my other writing on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. So this is a fun change of pace because I get to talk to you about this movie, and on Monday I'm talking to a Finnish director from Finland about her latest movie. So this is
pretty much the same.
I mean I'm sure we'll talk about sleepwalking and peeing and being in bunk beds.
Right.
So check that out. I'll have an interview with her later this week. You can find me on other pods than the David Thewlis of podcasting. Jake, where can people find you?
No.
No, you're not going to find him.
Here.
He's sitting in that
this
next
is
to his
it.
fridge. Yeah.
You can see me right now.
Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. We are trying to keep it weekly. We will try to keep it weekly as long as we can. We'll hopefully get a couple more in the can. I'm sure we'll get to something that we actually disagree on in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
But it's still fun regardless, so who cares? We'll catch you next time, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?